Hi, I'm Tom Miggott from Tom Miggott Photography. A couple of weeks ago I've opened an email box for you guys to submit your questions, comments and even topic suggestions for future episodes. The email address is asktmp@gmail.com. Well, I've received numerous emails already, and one of them is from Santosh. Santosh lives in San Jose in California near San Francisco. And his question is this one. Tom, I want to buy my first DSLR, and what lens should I buy? Well, rather than actually sending an email response to Santosh like I've done for other questions, I've decided to make two episodes to answer Santosh's question. The first episode today is about how to choose your camera body, and another episode, which I'll shoot probably tomorrow and will be online in a couple of days, will be how to choose my first lens. So, talking about your first DSLR, there are three questions that comes to my mind when I needed to buy my first DSLR. The first one is, what is the budget that I have for both the camera body and the lens? The second question would be, why do I want DSLR? And the third question will be, does the DSLR that I found either online or at the shop in my street, does it address all my expectations? So going back to the first question, getting yourself a DSLR is a real investment by itself. As a matter of fact, the lower price for a DSLR nowadays might be around a few £100, and then the prices go up to several £1,000, even maybe tens of £1,000s for some professional cameras. So how do you choose? There's one thing to keep in mind. If it's your first DSLR, then you do not have much experience with DSLR, or maybe none, and therefore you would not need all the features that a pro camera would offer you. And when you look at DSLR, I'd say there are three categories. There is the lower end entry-level DSLR, the one that you can find for something around 300, maybe 400 pounds sterling, and then you've got this, the high-end pro cameras, and we're talking about a few £1,000s for it. And usually those are full-frame cameras. Remember, the history of photography, I distinguish between the crop sensor and the full-frame sensor. So those would be professional cameras. And then you have the third category, which is in the middle, kind of mid-range, semi-pro cameras, and my Canon 60D is part of that category. So if you've got a restricted budget like most of us do, because if you don't, clearly that video is, well, yes, it's still for you, but obviously the whole budget part, well, if you can afford it, go for the most expensive one. However, one thing to keep in mind, you could give a a very low-end camera, even a digital camera. It does not need to be a DSLR. You give that to a professional, it's going to make a fantastic exposure, a really beautiful exposure. On the other hand, if you give a pro camera to a newbie, it's more likely that the result will be rubbish. So that being said, which one to go for? DSLR are pretty much released every 2 to 5 years period, and the good news about this is that when you want to purchase your very first DSLR, you do not need all the features that you can find in pro cameras or even in mid-range cameras, and therefore you do not need to spend so much money on your camera body. Another thing that I can mention now regarding budget, if you've got two baskets, one is for your budget for the lens, one is for the budget for your camera body, make sure there is more eggs in your lens basket than in your camera body. So what I mean by this is, if you have to choose between spending more money on the lens or more money on the camera body, spend it on your lens. That's the wisest choice you can make. Simply because you will not upgrade lenses unless you really go for the top end, but it's more likely that your lens, you're going to keep it for 10 years and so on. So going back to the camera body, like I said, every 2 to 5 years you will have a new version of that camera model, and you could upgrade. And because you are new to DSLR, it gives you 2 to 5 years to make your mark with that camera, get comfortable, get accustomed to shooting with a DSLR, and learn and build an experience. And then once you build that experience, then you can choose to upgrade your camera body and still use the lenses, the great lenses you have. The other thing as well to keep in mind is that if you go for a pro camera but you spend very little on the lens, your result is more likely to be quite mediocre, simply because the camera won't offer you a better quality than the lens can. As a matter of fact, while the DSLR photography is a combination of a camera body and a lens, really the lens is more important in that equation than the camera body itself. Don't get me wrong, camera body counts. However, the lens, the glass of the lens is responsible for the quality of your image, the sharpness of your image. The camera is only there to record it. And remember, old lenses that used to work with your film camera could potentially work with your digital camera. So that's interesting to keep in mind as well. So enough for the lens. Focusing on the camera body. So yeah, do not spend all your budget on the camera body. For my side of the story, how I ended up having the Canon 60D, I was reviewing camera bodies and I found the Canon 550D, and that camera was pretty much in the money I was thinking of spending for the camera body. However, I happened to travel to US, and therefore I planned in advance, and I realized that the Canon 60D, which is a higher model than the 550D, was at the same price if I bought it in US. So I decided to buy this better camera body for the same price of the 550D, and I was pretty happy with the lens that I got on the side. So that's for the question about budget. The second question is, why do you want a DSLR? If you want a DSLR because it looks professional, it looks like you would look like a paparazzi, it's huge, it's big, and God knows, man, we do love big things, right? Or if it's because you've been shooting digital photography for quite a while, you understand all the concept, and you realize that your current camera limits your creativity and you want more. And so I'm not here to judge you guys. I'm just offering my my help if I can. So clearly, if it's all about appearances, if you've got a budget, well, go for it. But one thing to keep in mind when it comes to DSLR are big, they heavy. Lenses are heavy. The body is heavy as well. Mine, for example, is probably around 800 grams. You add the lens to it and you pretty much end up with something around 1.5 kilo. Thinking that you will have to carry this, you will have to hold it when shooting. So a lot of that needs to be taken in consideration when moving to DSLR. Then there is the cost, obviously, and also what do you shoot? If it's to shoot when you go clubbing with your friends, you know, partying at the club, at a pub, and you just want to take some shots on Saturday night, well, the DSLR might not be the wisest choice of camera because of its weight, of its size, and it might be quite cumbersome to carry around with you. If, on the other hand, it's about creativity and really achieving better quality picture, then you might be on the right track for DSLR. The main difference, I'd say, between regular point-and-shoot digital camera and a DSLR would be, one, about easy access to the features. So what I mean by this is that, for example, I used to have a Lumix and I didn't have many buttons on it. I had a few buttons, but not as many as I have on my current camera. So if I needed to change the ISO, I would need to go through a menu to change the ISO. If I needed to change the aperture, same thing. So I had to travel through a very tedious menu in order to achieve the same settings that I can easily by the press of a button on my DSLR. So that's a good reason why moving to DSLR. Then there's also the outcome format of your image. Most point and shoot camera would offer you the possibility to shoot in JPEG, well, while the DSLR you can shoot in JPEG, in some in TIFF, and mostly in RAW format. And I'll do a video, I promise, I mentioned that already, I will do a video about RAW format and about the differences between RAW format, TIFF format and JPEG format, so you can make your choice wisely on this. So output format for your exposures, that's another good point as well. This is one of the reasons why I wanted a digital DSLR as well, on the side of all the other points that I've just mentioned. So really understanding why you want a DSLR. Then there are many websites out there that will give you all the specs you need to know about a specific camera. So let's keep in mind, there are many brands for cameras, and you know I'm a Canon boy. However, I'm not gonna push you guys to buy a Canon, absolutely not. So if we have a look, we've got Canon, we've got Nikon or Nikon, depending on who's saying what. We've got Sony, there's Pentax, and there are maybe other brands. I know that Sigma has just released DSLR. So different brand out there. However, pretty much across all brands you will find equivalent model. It all comes down to prices and personal preferences, and I'll go back to personal preferences by the end of this video. So there's many websites. My favorite one will be listed on my blog. Remember my blog, it's tommigottphotography.blogspot.com, and a lot more details about this process of choosing your first DSLR is already posted there. So the few my favorite websites for reviews will be posted there. So really go check them out, do comparison between brands, between models. You'll see once you figure out your budget, that will narrow down which models you could afford, and then comes down the brand, but then you check the specs, and it brings another question is, what do you want to do? If your goal is to do sport photography, for example, the number of frames per second that you can shoot, you can capture, might be of interest to you. For example, if you're shooting sport photography, you really need a very fast, a very high number of frames per second that you can capture. Well, a lower-end camera, a lower-end camera would offer you something around 3 frames per second, whereas my Canon 60D offers me 5.3 frames per second, and then you go a pro camera could probably offer you like something around 8 or 10 frames per second. So that, if the sport photography is your thing, then that might be worth considering. Even if you do not only sport photography, as a matter of fact, if you do wildlife photography, you might be interested by that. If you don't do any of them, then you know that that specific setting or that characteristic doesn't really matter to you, and trust me, that does increase the price of your camera. Second thing is, if you do night photography, you might be interested to have a high ISO capability, and the lower end camera would only be able to go up to maybe 4000 ISO or maybe 6400 ISO. Whereas my Canon 60D, I can go for 1200 ISO, for example, and professional camera can go even higher than that. And we've seen, I think the Canon 5D Mark III that's just been released can push it up to 120,000 or something like this. Or it's the Nikon 800D, I don't remember. Anyway, so high ISO, if you don't need that, then you can go for a lower end camera as well. Then shutter speed. We saw that for the shutter speed, my camera goes something like 1/8000th of a second. Lower end camera would offer you only 4/1000th of a second, so which might absolutely be enough for what you do. You know, it all matters about what you do, and you can always say, oh yeah, that'd be good if I had this option, it'd be good if I have that, but at the end of the day, all these little things add up together will cost a lot. So really you need to realize what you want to do. What's your expectation in photography? Do not think that as soon as you have this camera you will do everything, because you won't. You will stick to what you've been doing until now. You will improve, and as you get really better, then you will want to discover something else. But do not think that as soon as you have a camera you will extend and try to do absolutely everything that's out there, because you can't. And trust me, if you go with that approach, you will always be disappointed, because until you get no budget and you can buy the brand new camera, the latest release of a Canon, Nikon or whatever, you will always be disappointed. Even if you get that the 5D Mark III or the Nikon 800D, you're bound to be disappointed if you get to this approach of always going for the maximum you can do. Remember one thing: photography has been there for ages. Professional photographers have been there for ages, and until the last 10 years ago, there was no digital camera out there and people were still shooting great. So just worth keeping that in mind. There are other features that you can check, but really focus on what you want to achieve in photography. And the last point would be, what do you do once you found the camera you think is the best for you? Obviously, online shopping, that's where you will find the best bargain for it. However, before you make that purchase, there's one thing I strongly recommend you do. Go to the nearest camera shop out there in your town, in your city. I was going to say in your village, but you probably won't have one. But go out there where there is a shop in the street. You can even bring your own memory card. Bring it with you and try the camera. The salesman won't mind. You put the camera, the memory stick in it, the memory card in it, you give a few shots, you can even try the lenses as well. That's the same approach for lenses as well. I will say that again in the next episode. And really hold the camera, you know, really feel the grip. Personally, the reason why I went for Canon is because I had a hold of Nikon cameras in general, and I don't like the grip. Personally, it doesn't fit with my hand, and you know, we all have different hand size, and you know, it's really important that you feel comfortable with your camera. Make sure, shoot portrait, shoot landscape, and make sure that all the buttons for these numerous features, they're all easily accessible, and that, you know, it's not cumbersome and you don't struggle. Because if you struggle, if you're not comfortable with that camera body, God knows you won't use all these features, and at the end, you know, it's better to have less features but a more comfortable camera than the opposite. So really, yeah, go out there, try your camera, ask all the questions you want, go check the forums, and once you're really sure about the camera, then make your purchase. Go online. About purchasing second-hand cameras, it's like everything. Yes, you could go on eBay, you could buy a very cheap one, but then, you know, you need to make sure how the camera was taken care of for many years and this kind of thing. A good option would be to find this many shops, even on eBay, many professional camera shops, and they will buy second-hand cameras, and before accepting to buy these cameras, they would have done a whole check. So you're sure that if you buy from them, then they will tell you the quality of the cameras, and you can trust them better than if it's just a private person. So yeah, secondhand, if you buy from a camera shop, that might be a good deal. And it doesn't need to be online. Even in shops in streets, sometimes they have some stock of second-hand gears. Might be worth looking at it. And online shopping, eBay. If you buy brand new on eBay, no problem at all. If you buy secondhand, then you don't have any mean to check what you have. So I think that's pretty much all I had to say about choosing your camera body. So as a conclusion, I would say, the camera body, choose it wisely. Don't go crazy, don't spend all your money on it. Just make sure that it does what you want. Learn from it. This is your first DSLR. Learn from it, and then you can always upgrade and put your money on the lenses. And in the next video, we'll talk about how to choose your lenses. Once again, more details on my blog. The address appears here again. Much more detail than I've been covering on this video, because I think I may have forgotten a few things. And if you've got questions, comments, or even other topic suggestions, well, you know what, send them to asktmp@gmail.com, and I'll do my best to answer them in time, or even make a video for it. And until next time, this is Tom Migot saying, if you like it, well, capture it.